Well, hello everyone. Hey, and happy New Year to you all. Here we go again. It's 2025 Lunch and Learns, okay? And I'm so happy to see you all here today. Oftentimes I try to give you resources that you can put into your toolkit so that you can use at a later date if needed. And that's so important. So that's why I try to make a point of giving a variety of things. And today, I got to tell you, we've got an excellent resource for you today. Absolutely. So let me ask you this question. Have you ever did work with a contractor and they didn't do it well? Yes. Yeah, okay. Or you bought an expensive piece of appliance or something like that and it just didn't work real well. And you tried to get a resolution to that, your refund or a replacement, and it just is not working. You're not getting a resolution. Has that ever happened? All right, and you didn't know. It's frustrating, right? Was that not frustrating that you couldn't get okay. So what do? Do you just put it to rest and stay in that spot where you don't know what to do with it, or do you reach out to someone for help?
Reach out.
You reach out. Well, I'm going to tell you something. Today's resource, Call for Action, is here. And she is going to give you some ideas and some thoughts and some information that if you ever run into that kind of situation, you'll know who to call. So I want you to put your hands together and help me to welcome Jackie Falch, Director of Call for Action, Channel 3000.
Hello, happy Wednesday. I am very glad to be here. I'm glad that one of our volunteers, Paul Pittis, introduced me to Janice. So Janice, thanks for having me in. I appreciate that. Appreciate being here and appreciate everyone that's here today. I'm here today to do two things. It's not a real fun topic. We're not going to laugh a lot, but I'm going to give you some good information. I'm going to introduce you to Call for Action if you haven't heard of us before. And I'm going to talk quite a bit about scams and frauds and how to stay safe from them where you can. So, can I have a show of hands? Before today, have you heard or used Call for Action? Okay, a few of you. Good. Next question for you, and you can choose to raise your hand or not, but have you been touched by a fraud or a scam, or as Janice said, just trouble getting your money back on a purchase, on an appliance, any of that? Your efforts get you nowhere close to what you deserve. When those type of things happen, that's when you might connect to Call for Action and let us help you. First of all, Call for Action is a nonprofit agency that connects consumers and small businesses with both education and most commonly helps to resolve consumer issues. We've been operating for more than 60 years. This year marks our 62nd anniversary. There's 12 Call for Action offices in the U.S., anywhere from Boston to Honolulu. We're a 100% volunteer organization. So myself, everyone from the president of Call for Action down to the people locally who answer the phones and take your calls, we're all volunteers. Here in Madison, our volunteers all work on a part-time basis. We ask that they try to come in one day a week for a 3-hour shift. Some of our volunteers want to work a little bit more, and so they have the capability of working from home, and so some do put in more than the 3 hours. But that's not a requirement to be a volunteer. Call for Action in Madison is unique in several ways that I'm going to share with you today. And the first is because of the size of the geographical area that we service. It's not just the the Madison community. We can service any consumers in the state of Wisconsin. All the other call for action offices service people that are in their geographical city area. Most, by far, of the people that we serve are in the greater Madison area because that's where our services are promoted, but we can help anyone in the state. Every call for action office is sponsored by a local media partner. Now, when we started 60 years ago, a media partner was most often a newspaper or maybe a radio station. Today, it's all television stations. Call for Action in Madison has been here for more than 15 years. I think it's over 20 years, actually. And we're proud to be sponsored by WISC-TV, Channel 3, as most of you know it. Our partnership with Channel 3 provides us with the space to do our work in, the equipment, like computers and that we need to do our work, and they promote our services. I'm going to forward here a little bit. There we go. There's some information on how to get a hold of us. And then I'll leave this up for a minute. This is a few of the Call for Action volunteers at work. Here's Paul Pittis. He lives in Fitchburg here, and he's the one that made the introduction for us. So, you may have seen stories on Channel 3 or on Channel 3000 about consumer problems that were solved by Call for Action. There's going to be another one airing on the news somewhere within the next week. But that's not typical. Most of the cases that we work on, we solve ourselves. They don't go to the newsroom. But occasionally a reporter will hear about a case that we're working on and they'll say, gosh, that's something everyone should know about. When that happens, what we do at Call for Action, first of all, is we go to that consumer and says, hey, the newsroom would like to do a story on this. Are you okay with that? Not everybody is. If they're okay with it, that's going to involve them being interviewed, have a camera in their face and be interviewed on air, and not everybody's comfortable with that. If the consumer does not want that to happen, it will not happen. We'll still work on the case. It's just not going to go on air. So Call for Action is not a part of Channel 3. We're simply sponsored by Channel 3. It's not uncommon, too, for a consumer to come to us and say, hey, this happened to me, or hey, this is happening to me. Will you get this on air? And we just can't guarantee it. That's not what we do. What we typically do in that case is help the consumer figure out who it is they need to talk to at our station, Channel 3, or at other stations, and how they should approach that. But we can't guarantee to take what's happening to them and get it on air. Another way that the Madison Call for Action is unique is that we were the only affiliate of Call for Action that stayed open and helped people during COVID. At the start of COVID, there was a lot more Call for Action offices. There was about 25 offices. Everyone but Madison shut down. Not all of them reopened. But our volunteers here in the community are awesome. And just like a lot of businesses, they figured out how to get things done during that time. So they figured out how they could work from home. And we continued to do that. During COVID, the cases we worked on changed a great deal. We very often heard from critical care workers, they didn't have the equipment they needed to do their job. The masks that they needed were in such short supply. Gloves, things like that. So we did a lot of that during COVID. We help consumers by giving them direction, mediation, education to resolve the problems that they're experiencing with can be a business, it can be a government agency, or a lot of various organizations. And the cases that come into us run a wide gamut. Can be something as simple as a grocery store refund, or very commonly a purchase that was made online that didn't get to someone. But we see a lot of cases that involve insurance billing, because that's impossible to understand. We see a lot of landlord-tenant problems, a lot of auto repair problems. I mentioned that there's going to be a story on Channel 3 coming up soon, and that has to do with a local dealership and auto repair problem. We see a lot of contractor or home repair problems, and just a whole lot more. Our services are always free, they're always confidential, and as I said before, we help consumers and we help small businesses that have consumer problems, were involved in a scam, were frauded, those type of things. Another unique aspect of the Call for Action Madison office is the ongoing training that we provide to our people. Everyone, when they start volunteering with us, gets a pretty extensive training in how we do things and the resources we have to help people. But here in Madison, we also do a monthly online video meeting where all of our volunteers are on for a half hour or so for updates. And we do 2 in-house trainings every year where we bring in experts from state and federal agencies, industry specialists, etc. Another unique way that Madison Call for Action World is in educating our consumers. Education helps them to not get into situations. All of us are going to get in a situation sometime, but anything that we can do to avoid that, we do. One of the ways that we educate people is exactly like you and I are doing today. I'm going out and speaking into the public. We also have a monthly newsletter. We always have just had that put out on the Channel 3000 website, but not a lot of people were seeing it. So we've just started after the first of the year. We've expanded the newsletter, and we will email it monthly, it's free, to anyone that wants to. So I brought a couple of copies of our January newsletter with me, and they're over on the table here where Janice is. There's also a notebook and a pen over there. If you'd like to have the newsletter emailed to you every month, just jot down your email address and I'll add you to the list for that. And if you get it for a couple of months and you decide it's not useful to you, you can always opt out and not get it anymore. So complaints from consumers come to us either online or by telephone. Whenever a complaint comes in, I see it first, I assign it to one of our volunteers, and then that volunteer gets a hold of you and has a more in-depth conversation to understand exactly what the problem is, what you've done about it so far, what kind of roadblocks you're running into and getting frustrated with, and then come up with a plan of action. It might be some ideas of what you can do or where you can go yourself further to get that resolved, or it might be where we step in on your behalf and get a hold of a company. One thing that we found out a lot of times is if we call a local business, when we call we always say, I'm Jackie from Call for Action with WISC-TV. You know, Betty Smith said that, you know, you overcharged her. A lot of times I think businesses have their hackles go up and they think, ooh, I don't want to be on TV. And a refund comes right away. So even though we're not part of the station, being affiliated with them helps a lot of times. Some issues are taken care of real quickly within a day. Others might take many months to close and a lot of going back and forth. It's hard to say. We sometimes work cooperatively with state and federal agencies to resolve issues, as well as helping to track and combat problems, fraud, scams. And we will often strongly urge or strongly recommend that a consumer, even though they're working with us and we're working on a problem, that they also report that issue to authorities. And it might be a police department, it might be the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection, sometimes the FTC. But it's by consumers reporting, and that's one thing I'm going to say a lot today. It's by consumers reporting that these agencies start to build a case against a scammer. Everybody's got a little different piece of information, and that's how those cases build. So reporting can be very, very important. And I'll give you one example. In 2022, we had a complaint come in about a local home improvement contractor. And then another against the same person, and another, and it really started to build. So much that we got a hold of our contacts at Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection and said, have you heard about this guy? And they had. And so they wanted to make sure all of the consumers we were helping were reporting this. The gentleman's name is Tyler Hansen. He had a bunch of different business names that he was working under, a few different addresses, always the same phone number. But he'd go out and he'd say, I'm gonna fix your problem, it's gonna cost $1,000, pay it up front or pay me half up front, and he'd never show up again. Or in a few cases, he did a little bit of work, but not everything. What he did was shoddy. In the end, there was over 100 homeowners that he scammed that are known in 22 counties and almost $1 million in losses. So this particular case, as I said, we brought in the Department of Ag, Trade, and Consumer Protection. They brought in the Department of Justice. FBI was involved because there's some money laundering. Mr. Hansen, the two other people in his business, he had a partner and his wife was a partner. They're all in prison now. They've been ordered to pay restitution to the people they frauded, but he's in prison and they can't find the money. So I don't know if the people are gonna get their money. That was a big, big case. One last unique aspect that the Madison Call for Action does is, or a monthly newsletter, I had told you about that. So, globally, Call for Action, using the clicker the wrong way here. Globally, Call for Action solves about 90% of the cases that we work on. Some partially, some fully. In 2023, there was over $12 million nationally that Call for Action saved consumers. Here in Madison, I'm very proud to say in 2024, we had over 600 cases presented to us, 603. And we were successful in returning more than $969,000 to local consumers in 1 year. So we're very proud of that, very proud of that, thank you. So now it's time to turn our attention to frauds and scams. Do those scare you? They do me, and they should you as well. And there are different new twists on fraud and scams all the time, absolutely all the time. So what is a fraud and what's a scam? Fraud is defined as wrongful or criminal deception intended to result in financial or personal gain. And a scam is simply a dishonest scheme. It's a fraud. Who commits these? Criminals These are criminals that are stealing your money or stealing your identity. And everyone, regardless if they're a willing participant or not, they are a criminal. And I can't say that enough. They're a criminal and you are a victim. And it's not always just done by the 30-year-old sitting in his basement on his computer hacking into someone's account. A lot of frauds and scams now are done through organized crime, which is very scary. According to the Federal Trade Commission, Americans lost $10 billion to scams in 2023. That number is a significant increase over previous years, and it's also a number that's grossly underestimated. Because most people do not report. Probably only 1 in 4 or 1 in 5 of these crimes are reported to authorities. So I'm saying again, report. Reporting is something that we need to do to try to decrease the frauds and scams. It's how the authorities put these criminals away. And so it's very, very important. You'll often hear that older adults are most likely to be scammed or the victims of fraud, and that's not true. It's not a function of age, of income, of education, or IQ. And in some ways, people who are smarter can be victims precisely because they think they're safe. They think that won't happen to them, and that's not true. Don't let that happen to you. It's no different from the way it used to be with a con artist when they'd walk down the street and they'd bump into someone and make a little bit of conversation while they were stealing their wallet or their watch. The difference is that online, the criminals can do it millions of times and at a speed and a scale that is nothing short of mind-boggling. The FTC says that anyone can be a victim at any age. In fact, reports suggest that many scams are harming younger people, the 20-year-olds, maybe the 30 years old, more than older adults. One reason for that is simply that younger generations tend to report fraud more readily than the older ones. But while older adults are less likely to report fraud, the amount of fraud, the dollar amount is larger in older adults. The average loss was $800 for someone in their 70s and $1,500 for 80-year-olds and above. So because of that, older adults are often targeted. There's 50 million Americans age 62 and older, so we're a big community group. So we can be prime targets. Let's talk about some common scams. While fraud and scams are both interesting and can be fascinating, we'll then focus on some things that we can do to keep ourselves safe, because that's the most important thing you're going to hear today. Nationally, artificial intelligence, or you might hear it referred to as AI scams, are big. But there's imposter scams, sextortion scams, so those are scams targeting teens and children. Romance scams, phone scams, investment scams, online purchase scams, employment scams, identity theft. Those are the top ones. But there's a lot more too. There's mail fraud, there's phishing scams, cyber scams, card skimmers, lottery and sweepstakes scams, contractor fraud, government imposter schemes, grandkid and family schemes, and we're going to talk about some of these. And even that list is only a partial list. So let's talk about the few of the most common scams and how they work. And let's start with gift card scams. Because there's more scamming in this category during the holiday season because it's a season of giving. But there's getting to be more and more of this too, because more people want to receive and give gift cards. It's easier. There's also more gift card scams because this is one of the big areas that organized crime works in. And it's organized crime primarily out of China, if you can believe that. So what commonly happens is a criminal might be forced into doing what they're doing by these organizations. And they're pressured to meet daily quotas. So they go into a retail establishment and they probably are told they've got to hit 10 to 15 stores in a day. They go into a real retail organization and they steal a handful of gift cards. And we've all seen gift cards that are stacked up sitting by the checkout counter, or they're on a kiosk hanging on a peg. They're very easy. They're very small. They're very easy to go in a pocket. They're very easy to be stolen. So they spend their day going out and stealing all those gift cards. They go back to their home and they tamper with that card. What they're looking to do is to get a hold of the barcode that's on the back of it. So sometimes they use a hairdryer if there's some plastic protection on that and open them up. Sometimes it's a razor blade to scratch off the area to get to those barcodes. Then they enter those barcodes into a computer program that is always generating those cards. The next day, or they put the cards back, they'll put a sticker over what they scratched out, or they'll seal it back up. The next day, they go back to those stores and they put them back on that shelf. I walk in and buy a Visa gift card for my grandchild, not knowing that it's been tampered with. So you get a gift card, and you've probably heard of this before. The first thing you have to do is to activate it. So you call a phone number, you punch in the number on the card, and they say that card is worth $100. As soon as that card is activated, that computer program that it was entered into is running all the time, and it's flagged that that card is active now. And then it's used to make up a $100 purchase, gosh knows where. And that gift card you have before you put it in your wallet is worth $0. So you find that out, you say to the store, hey, I bought this here. And they say, it's not our problem, and I said, Visa, it's Visa's problem, call them. Visa said, it's not our problem, it's the store's problem. And it just goes round and round and round. It's a cycle that doesn't end. In the end, you might get your money back for it, but there's a good chance you're not going to. So when you go to buy that gift card, or when you go to buy a gift card, if you can buy it online, so it's a digital card, do that. If you do need to go into a store and buy cards, and sometimes we just have to do that, take a really close look at it before you buy it. You know, if there's a tear on it, if it looks like there's a sticker on it, anything, do not buy it. Or try to buy from a store that's got the gift cards behind the checkout counter where they can't be accessed. Imposter scams are common. So with an imposter scam, you get a call, you could get an email, you could get a text message. It could be something on social media, and it looks like it's from a business you know that you've heard of or that you do business with. And they might say, there's a problem with your account. Or maybe you hear they're doing a fraud investigation, and they need to rule you out just to keep you safe. Or maybe they say, you won a prize. You didn't win a prize, and they're not helping you out. It might say to call a number or to click a link. Do not do that. They're going to tell you they can fix the problem, but what they're going to do is get some of your personal information, maybe your name, your address, your phone number, an account number, a credit card number, a PIN number, a social security number. They might insist that you pay for them helping you with a gift card or cryptocurrency. Don't do that. It was never that legitimate business that was contacting you. So my first advice is always take your time, always do research. And I'll give you an example. A close family member of mine got a call from Amazon. She's an Amazon Prime person. She buys from Amazon all the time. And they said they suspected that her account was vulnerable to her information being stolen. Nobody wants that, but they could help her. And they could tell her how to go in and fix it. And she's like, oh, I'm not very computer literate. Well, if you want to open up your computer and give me access to it, we can do it for you. So that's what she did. And that nice young man walked through things, and yeah, her identity was stolen. That person was not from Amazon. So she had to, go to the bank and change accounts, and, it's just a nightmare for us. So take your time. We also hear on the news quite a bit about grandkid or family scams. It doesn't just happen to someone else. What happens is you get a call from a family member, you know his or her voice, and you know it's that person that you're talking to. That's artificial intelligence, and these criminals have cloned their voice. They probably find out a little bit of information about the person they say they are, your grandchild, your grandson, for example, because they get this information off their social media. The kids put everything out there on social media, don't they? Anyway, the caller says they're in trouble. They were in an accident and they're in the hospital. The hospital needs money before they'll take care of them and do surgery, or they need to get bailed out of jail, and oh gosh, please don't tell mom or dad. Yeah. And so you are in a panic. You want to help your loved ones. But it's not who you think it is. So again, take your time. If they say to keep it a secret, don't keep it a secret. Try calling that, hang up, try to call that person directly, or call a member of their family. You're going to find out it's not them. People have lost thousands and thousands of dollars to these scams. Go ahead.
How do they get the voice?
Artificial intelligence. So a computer hears a voice somewhere,
But where have they heard the voice?
maybe on social media,
Oh, okay.
something.
Yeah.
Yep, and they clone it.
YouTube or something. Yep.
Yep.
I was gonna ask you about Meta.
About,
META.
No, that's a-
About that, they come, it's a new thing.
yep, Meta.
Meta.
They own Instagram and Facebook and I think Twitter. I'm not sure about that one, yeah. And they're a huge company. They don't do a lot to help people at all. So, touch briefly on government imposter scams. So you get a call or an email from Social Security Administration, from Medicare. Your readout on your phone might say it's from Social Security or from Washington, D.C., or your email. And then they say something alarming. Maybe your Social Security number has been suspended, or benefits going to be taken away. They want to make sure that you're the right person that they're talking to, so they ask you to verify your Social Security number. They don't have your Social Security number, you're giving it to them. The government will never reach out and contact you like that. If you get a call like that, hang up. If they said, for instance, they're from Social Security, look up the number from Social Security, call Social Security and say, hey, I got this call, is there a problem? And you're going to find out there's not. Contractor fraud. We see a lot of contractor fraud. And this might be a result of a contractor that comes to your door or calls you. Or it can also happen if you call a contractor. You can invite them in. They might use pressure tactics to sell unneeded or overpriced contracts for home improvement, and then things don't go as planned. They take your money up front and they don't do the work. They do a poor job, things like that. When that happens, and then you can't get a hold of them for anything. We can try and help with that. But to try and protect yourself before that happens, first of all, always avoid a contractor who approaches you first. And if someone comes to your door, tell them to hold on a minute and call your local village office or police department, because most cities and villages have ordinances where anyone going door to door has to register or have a license. So find out that. Always obtain a written bid and try to use a local contractor. Once you've got a bid, or a couple of bids ideally, ask if they're licensed and check to make them show you their license. Ask if they're insured and see their insurance, or if they're bonded. Check references. Let them give you a number or a couple numbers of people that you call and talk to them and make sure. You can also call the Better Business Bureau or contact them to see if there's any complaints against this organization. Always get a contract that's written very clearly, including the payment terms, and never pay up front. Never pay with cash or a gift card. And if they're working inside your home, or if they're working on the outside and they have to come in, they ask to use your bathroom. If they come in your house for any reason, have anything of value locked up and put away. You can't be safe enough. There's a lot of telephone and sweepstakes scams going on. They use lies, deception, fear tactics to convince you to send them money or give you your personal information. You're never a winner of a contest unless you've entered it. And if you entered a sweepstake, you remember entering it. Never pay to play. So if they say, we are gonna mail you this $10,000, but you have to pay the shipping and the insurance, send me a check for $110. Don't do that. It may seem very legitimate, you might get this call and your caller ID again reads Publishers Clearinghouse. That's pretty exciting to get a call from Publishers Clearinghouse, I tell you. But yeah, it's not them. I want to talk for a few minutes about mail and check fraud. Mail theft to check fraud is surging. The post office says that themselves. Theft of checks happen all the time. It's a very common problem. Those stolen checks might be altered in a number of ways. If you wrote a check out to, let's say, your grandson again, Johnny Smith, they might erase Johnny Smith and put their number in there, their name in there, sorry. Or they might check the amount, change the amount, the dollar amount on it. When you're writing a check, you always want to use a gel ink pen. Gel ink can't be erased, can't be altered. So use a gel ink pen. Stolen checks, though, are used in other ways, too. Sometimes the checks are sold illegally on the internet. How scary is that to think of it, that your checks could be sold on the dark web and what someone can do with your information. Sometimes they use that as a template to make more of your checks that they're going to use. If this happens to you, immediately go to your financial institution and they're going to help you out to change all of your accounts, all of your passwords, everything, so you won't be re-victimized. Also, if it comes to the time you're getting down to the last of the checks you have, you need to order new checks. Have them sent to your financial institution and go pick them up from them. Don't have them sent to your mailbox. Consider going to the post office and signing up for informed delivery. With that, it's free, it's simple. You get an email every morning that says this is what's coming in your mail. And you want to make sure that's what did come in your mail that day. check and empty your mailbox every single day, as soon as you can. Never put your account number, your social security number, your driver's license number on your checks. If you have a check or a check that you're mailing out somehow, being in a gift card or paying a bill, don't put it in your mailbox on the street. Put that red flag up. Criminals drive up and down the streets, they look for those red flags, and they will quickly go and steal your outgoing mail out of that. So they check for that. So if you've got a check like that, go to the or a mail like that, go to the post office, mail it inside, or mail it in one of the boxes they have outside. Romance scams, I find these fascinating. These criminals, they're not who they say they are. They take great care in first establishing a strong relationship with you. They may say they love you, but what they're really saying is that they love your money. They're using a false identity. They're not who they say they are. And usually there's some reason they can't meet with you face to face. You know, and maybe they don't live locally. Maybe they're handicapped, can't get out for one reason or another. Maybe they do meet with you, and that's even scarier that you're meeting with this criminal in person. But pretty soon they ask you for some money for some reason. Maybe it's the airfare to come and see you, they don't have it. Maybe it's to pay a medical bill. They ask for little bits of amounts at first, and then they need a little bit more and a little bit more. And before you know it, it's escalated and you've given them a whole lot of money. Don't be embarrassed. This is a criminal who stole from you. Report it. Contact your financial institution. You're going to want to contact the police department. They stole from you. And the FTC, because maybe this person is doing this to a number of people.
Jackie, can I have a question?
Yes.
In a situation like that, there's no recovery of that money, correct?
Probably not.
Okay.
Yeah. Do you know what card skimmers are? They're devices that are put over something at the gas station that steals your identity.
How
They're
do you
using-
recognize that? Is there any way to know?
You can, try and wiggle it, try and look, see if it looks legitimate. Identity theft, let's talk about last. It can drain your bank accounts, it can drain your financial holdings. I think that identity theft will make purchases on your credit cards, open new accounts in your names, get identity and government documents issued in your names. It can be a big, big problem. Signs that someone is using your identity is when you get bills or charges for things that you didn't buy or services that you didn't use. Maybe you see some bank withdrawals that you didn't do. So check your credit report on a regular basis. Make sure that you don't find accounts open in your name that you didn't open, that you don't know about. If you've ever wondered how your identity or your information can be used by criminals to steal it, the largest portion is used for credit card fraud. Another big portion is used for government benefits and documentation. Can be used to get utilities, phone accounts that are in your name but not for you. Can be employment related.
And it can go to loan fraud or bank fraud. But it also can be used for medical reasons. It can be used by a criminal to evade the police when they say they're you, not me. And even small things, magazine subscriptions. That's all part of identity fraud. So, what do you do when your identity has been stolen? If you find that out or you suspect that. First, immediately place a fraud alert with your financial institution or institutions and credit reporting companies, as well as notifying your police. The local police will look into it. Can they do anything about what happened? Maybe so, maybe not, but it should be reported. A fraud alert makes lenders verify identity before granting new credit. To do a fraud alert, you contact one of the 3 credit reporting bureaus. So either Equifax, Experian, or TransUnion. Contact one of those 3 organizations. They're required to report it to the other 2 as well. So that saves you some steps. A credit freeze is strongly recommended. It's a really good way to prevent identity theft. And again, to do a credit freeze, you contact one of those credit bureaus and you ask that your credit be frozen. So if your credit's frozen and someone goes to buy a new car, they can't verify what they need to because the credit is frozen. Now, you can lift that credit freeze at any time. So if you want to go buy a car, call one of those credit bureaus, say I have a freeze on my accounts. I'm going to XYZ company to buy a new car. You know, it's okay for them to check my credit. So they'll lift it temporarily and then they'll put it back on for you. Some ways to protect yourself. Number 1, your passwords. You need to have a strong password. Those are key to safeguarding your digital and your online life. And knowing how to create strong passwords is one of the most critical aspects that there is in staying safe with cybersecurity. A good password should be long. Most places now, when you're signing up for something, will ask you for a password that's 8 digits long, has an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, a number, and a symbol in it. There are computer programs that can hack and figure out an 8-digit password pretty darn quickly. The longer your password, the harder it is for someone to crack. 16 digits is ideal. It would take a hacker years to figure that out, and there's too many other people that are easy to get into, so they're gonna move on. Don't keep reusing passwords, and I used to be the queen of doing this. I've got so many passwords to remember, so I'm always gonna use blah, 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 blah. And if it needs more, I'll add an exclamation point at the end. So that left me vulnerable that if a hacker figured out that password that I had, let's say on my Amazon account, they could then try all different kind of accounts too to see if I have an account and they've got my password. So it's hard, but don't reuse passwords. Don't use something simple, you know, like a dog's name, a street you grew up on, the high school you graduated from, those things. They should be unique. So besides being long, you should have a different password for different accounts. But then, myself too, it's like, how do I remember all of those? There are applications you can get that help you with that. The 2 that I've used that I'm familiar with are Keeper, and LastPass. So in there, they can come up with a jumble of letters and numbers that you can use. You can say, this is my password for my Amazon account. You just need to know one password to get in there and to keep looking at those or adding to those. They're fairly easy to use. One thing that's helping is the two-factor authentication. So if you go in an account and they ask for that, or you may see it most commonly where you go into an account, maybe you go into MyChart, and you put in your password, and then it says, I'm going to send you a 6-digit code, so you have to go to your email. That's two-factor authentication, and that's great for helping to keep you safe. Unless you're using long, complex passwords, change them frequently. You know, maybe make yourself a note and change your password the first of every year. Second thing to stay safe is don't respond to unexpected calls, emails, text, social media messages, especially if they ask for money or personal information. With your phones, most phones now have a caller ID. If you don't know that person that you're calling, don't answer it. If it's an important message, they're going to leave you. If it's important, they're going to leave you a voicemail message. Don't answer calls you don't know who they're from. Even if you live in Stoughton and they say it's a call from Stoughton, you know, they're spoofing something. Always take your time. Don't be tricked or pressured into doing something in a hurry. We talked about that before. Take your time. Think about every situation. Never pay someone who's asking for payment as a gift card, a wire transfer, cryptocurrency. There's something sketchy going on. Only carry the cards and the identification, so credit cards, debit cards, and identification that you absolutely need. Lock the rest up at home. If you've got 3 credit cards, you don't need those 3 credit cards to run to the grocery store. Go home. I'll urge you all to go home and make a list of all of your cards, your credit cards, your debit cards, your medical cards, your social security card. Include the account numbers on that, and the customer service or the fraud number for them. And then take that paper and lock it up somewhere. That way, if you do get a card stolen, you can't just say my Visa was stolen and I don't know what the number is. You've got all that information. This is a hard one for a lot of us. Consider going paperless with your monthly bills, not having them come in the mail. We talked about mail fraud. People are going through and stealing bills all the time. So if going paperless is not something you're comfortable doing, know when your bank statement comes every month, or know when your credit card bill comes every month. And if it doesn't come on or around that date, it could have been stolen. Call that company and say, hey, our statement's late going out this month because I didn't get mine. Always check your bank statements, your credit card statements, your explanation of benefits for medical things. Check those every month to make sure there's nothing on there that is something you didn't do. Too many people get a credit card bill and they charged $100, their minimum payment is $25, and they just pay that amount without really looking to see if there's something fraudulent on there. We touched on this. Protect your incoming and your outgoing mail. Use a locked mailbox if you can. We talked about removing your mail as soon as possible when it comes in, and sending checks by mailing them inside the post office or at the post office collection box. Avoid putting your flag up, because your delivery person is going to look in your mailbox. You get mail almost every day. You don't have to have that flag up alerting to someone that there is mail in there that can be stolen. That makes you a prime target. Sign up for direct deposit whenever you can, so that your checks go directly into your bank account electronically by some kind of magic that way, rather than sitting in your mailbox and possibly being stolen. The last way for keeping yourself safe is to never let your credit card or debit card, whatever you're using, out of your sight. If you're at a restaurant and they've got one of those kiosks at the table, pay there. If you don't know how to use it, your server can help you do it there, but you're holding on to your credit card. If a server says, oh, I'll take that up and run it for you, go up with them. Watch what they're doing with it. Sometimes there's bad people. You never know where it is. Always keep your credit card in sight. Oh, one other thing about keeping yourself safe that I skipped over. Be very conscious of where you're saying your information and that someone could overhear it. Where you'll see that frequently, it happens a lot of places. But one place that we want to do it frequently is when we go to the doctor. When we go to the reception and check in, and they say, will you verify your address, please? You know, will you verify this or that? You're saying that out loud, there can be a criminal in the room that's overhearing that. So if they want you to verify your address, write it down. Say, I'm not comfortable saying that out loud. Write it down for them, or give them your driver's license that's got it on, something like that. You heard me mention a few times today to report fraud, and I can't say that enough. It's very, very important. A criminal isn't just scamming you, they're doing it to a lot of people. Also, I want to remember when someone scams you, or when someone scams someone else, they are, or you are, a victim. You were victimized by a criminal. And we have to keep that in mind and not point fingers. You know, often someone's embarrassed that they were scammed, you know, and it's normal to feel embarrassed. And especially when someone says, well, how could you fall for that? You know, how could you let that happen to you? We need to emphasize with them because it can happen to any of us. Just show compassion. I brought a few things with me. I mentioned that I brought some of the newsletters. If you want to pick one up, you can do that, or you can sign up to get the newsletter. I also brought a few documents up here from the Federal Trade Commission on how to avoid a scam. Take one of those if you're interested. And another document that talks about identity theft, and that's one that we've produced. So help yourselves to any of those. You can find our volunteers, our consumer advocates, in our offices on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and we're there answering the phones from 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. If you can't call during that time, you can always call and leave a phone message for us, or you can go online and file a complaint. You could just go to the Channel 3000 website, hit the button for the call for action section. The first thing that comes up is a form you can fill out to file a complaint. Or if you scroll up and down, you see some of our old newsletters, you see pieces that were on the news about things that we've worked on, things like that. So, that's all I've got today. I've got I can hang around a few more minutes if anybody's got any questions. Or I'll be around for a few minutes after I'm not up here if you want to ask me anything personally. So, thank you all for coming again. I appreciate it.